Tesla's alleging that our vehicles are safer on a percentage basis than just the average user.
And welcome to Queen City News Plus. We are talking with Order in the Court today with Brian Blakely, and we have
Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes.
All right, good to see you, my man. Hey, so we got 3 topics today that we are going to be discussing, as we always do. And the first topic that we're going to be discussing is 24 state attorneys general have, along with the Democratic governors, have sued the Trump administration over withholding funds from the Education Department. It really is impactful to a lot of states that they are fighting back on this right now.
My kids don't like when I withhold funds. They got an allowance. They're expecting the allowance, right? And that's basically with Jeff Jackson and the other 23 state attorneys generals that have brought claim against the federal government. That's what they're saying. We got people that were anticipated getting this money tomorrow. They're saying, hey, the day before the money was supposed to come to us, we get this random message that says, yep, you know what? Actually, you are not going to get this money. I couldn't imagine what that looks like on a state basis, because I know how my kids have outbursts and are frustrated or concerned or like, hey, you said we were getting paid today. It's 11 o'clock. How come I didn't get paid already? I can imagine trying to operate and depend on those funds on a state level. But you got a couple things. Well, what's the arguments? We got the legal basis. It's the Impound Control Act of 1974. That basically says that before the president, the executive branch, can make any type of cuts or withhold any type of funds, they got to notify Congress. Why? Because Congress is the holder of the purse. They are the ones that make a decision on if money can go out, if money can come in, and how it goes out. Well, you think you want to talk with them and have to talk with them because specifically the Impound Control Act says that you have to. These states are alleging that the government has not done that. And because they failed to do this, they're asking a court, probably a number of courts, to give them their just desert.
Yeah, and as we were talking about there, you mentioned Jeff Jackson, the Attorney General for North Carolina. He had a press conference earlier, and here's what he is saying about the cuts that are coming to North Carolina and how impactful it will be to our state. Take a listen here.
It was a 3-sentence email, contained basically no detail, and simply said that this money was going to be frozen until further notice. Since then, they have been unwilling to answer our questions. If this is not addressed, the impacts will be severe and widespread. It is going to affect programs like after-school programs for at-risk youth, suicide prevention programs, mental health services for students, STEM education, English learning support, adult literacy classes, and may result in higher class sizes in grades K through 3. It will disproportionately impact our rural school districts. Among the most heavily impacted on a per-student basis, the Ashe County, Polk County, and Graham County, and may result in laying off roughly 1,000 educators. It will also particularly impact counties that have been hurt by Helene and are still recovering. Our estimate is that of the Helene-impacted counties, this would cut them to the tune of $18 million. This is why I and a number of AGs are joining together to take the Department of Education to court. Because in addition to being wrong and harmful, this is completely against the law.
Okay, there you hear it from Attorney General Jeff Jackson, laying out in detail exactly how harmful and impactful these cuts will be.
Let me say this, Brian. I am very good friends with Attorney General Jeff Jackson. And I say this often about myself. Folks can say, hey, you're animated, you're motivated. You really are passionate about things when you speak. But it's when you slow down and when you get reserved and measured extremely with your comments that people should take notice of those types of things. Jeff is extremely articulate, very charismatic. I've been to a ton of events with him in terms of campaigns, and I've watched the fire come out of him when he speaks. That's a different Jeff Jackson that we see right there. The measure, the response is different. And why? Because this is going to impact us here in the pockets, in the folks that he's touched probably 100 of the 100 counties that we have in our state. So what do we have? $6 billion in education funding across the country that has been paused. You're talking about after school teacher training, suicide prevention, education, language acquisition, the adult education programs. These are going to be things that are affecting not just folks here in Charlotte, not in these urban areas that you would assume that these are going to impact. No, potential 1,000 teachers will be losing their jobs here in our state. $900 million funding on hold in California, $150 million in Washington, Alabama estimated to lose $100 million. Those are the types of things that are affecting people mostly in rural districts. These are mostly the places, and if you lay over the map that shows the support for Trump's campaign, these are the areas that supported him and voted for him the most, that are now going to be overly impacted by the cuts, by the things that the Trump administration is doing. So that $6 billion is going to mostly affect those rural areas. And you heard him talk about it in the press conference. That's the impact that we're going to see. Think about it. In some of these states, in Alabama specifically, they're going back to school in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You're going back to school in 3 weeks, and you don't have the funding to do the things that you need to do to ensure that teachers are properly paid, that after-school programs are properly funded. So where are them kids going to go? Right now, when jobs and parents are working 1 and 2 and 3 jobs, to make ends meet, and they can't go pick up their kids right when school starts. So you have these after-school programs that fill that need. People are thinking about these like dollars and cents on the screen, on some Excel sheet, and not recognizing that when you make these decisions, they have real-world implications. This is a real-world implication, and we're seeing it play out right in front of us.
Yeah, and it's something that is very impactful right away for North Carolina as we have the start of school season. What standing does the federal government have to make these kind of cuts, and what is the 24 attorneys general here fighting to overturn here?
Obviously, the Impound Act is the standing. The court has uniformly, historically supported the Impound Control Act of 1974 since the 70s. This would be the executive branch once again attempting to lengthen, stretch, expand the executive power, and the court now will have an opportunity to reel that back in as we have those supposedly 3 separate but yet equal branches of government. This will now be a court's opportunity to say, yes, the executive branch has overstepped its boundaries, or no, they haven't. I mean, if I pull out the crystal ball, Brian, I think that any court of appeals U.S. District Court that hears this case in the districts where they've been filed will rule in favor of the 24 states attorney general. I think when it gets to the Court of Appeals, it's a crapshoot. It depends on the panel that hears the case. And then when you get to the final court, to the Supreme Court, if they go across partisan lines, they'll rule in favor of the president. If they go with precedent, history, how cases in courts have ruled in the past, they'd go with the attorney general. So right now, I'm not sure where this falls.
Well, you just brought up the Supreme Court, and that brings us to our next topic of the day when they're talking about it, and goes right well with the Education Department about allowing the federal government to make cuts there. And the White House is also ramping up to fight back against what they expected to be a lot of lawsuits when it comes to the mass firings, including the State Department, the Education Department now. And we're going to have more on that coming up right after this break on Queen City News Plus. You're listening to Order in the Court. Welcome back to Queen City News Plus. Anchor Brian Blakely here as we're ordering the court, and we got Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes. And Khalif, we're going to be talking about our second topic today is talking about the Supreme Court that laid the foundation here for the Trump administration to make a lot of federal cuts. We've seen that with the State Department, just came out now where they're going to do that with the Education Department, but they're gearing up for a lot of lawsuits going forward.
We are a litigious society already. So before the Trump administration took office, folks were already suing people at record basis. This is different, though. This is government agencies suing the federal government. This is individual agencies that receive funds that are suing the federal government. This is state attorney generals that are suing the federal government. Yeah, that's happened before in the past. Cannot mistake it. It has been something that historically has occurred. But this is at record clip. This is where when folks are feeling like they have been aggrieved, when they feel like the court is the only way that they can go, where there's no ability to negotiate in or get recourse except for going to litigate, then that's where we're finding ourselves. When you're seeing people walk out, as we see here, this individual with the boxes in their hand. I saw the video the other day where the folks walked out and they were giving them a round of applause as they were walking out after serving, being career-long federal employees. And now you're getting a hand clap parade as you walk out the door. I mean, this is troubling, and I overemphasize the fact that these firings are real people. They're not just numbers on the screen. They're not just
1,300 with the State Department
Right.
today. Now it's coming to the Educational Department. Unemployment's likely going to rise, but they're talking about lives that have certainly been going to be. Incredibly changed forever. But on this is what the Trump administration ran on, was less government. And here's what the Supreme Court has allowed and paved the way for them to do that.
They have and they haven't. So this is a mixed bag of an answer. The Trump administration does something that we're implementing a real fast approach to reduction in force, right? These RFIs. So we have this reduction in force efforts that we're attempting to do. People file claim against it. The original claim, this Trump versus the American Federation of Government Employees. That first claim that was here, there were 19 individual agencies that were bringing claim against the federal government. What does Trump do in response? Well, we're going to go ahead and they bring their claim in U.S. District Court. U.S. District Court rules in favor of implementing an injunction. The injunction's put in place, goes to the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals lifts some of the injunction, but keeps most of the things in place, specifically stopping the Trump administration from continuing these mass firings. What does Trump do? Immediately appeals an emergency request in front of the Supreme Court. So in front of the Supreme Court isn't the underlying question of, do I have the authority? Is what I've done constitutional? That most of the time when a case comes in front of the Supreme Court, there will be something called the call of the question, right? The question presented before the court, and then the court can only answer and address the question presented. So in this case, the question presented is, should the lower court have issued a temporary injunction? So you got to go through the standard for what a temporary injunction is. A temporary injunction is extraordinary relief. I have to overemphasize it. The courts don't want to issue an injunction. They want you to file a claim and get to some resolution. An injunction gives you a temporary resolution before your actual case gets heard. So they don't want to do that. Only if there's likelihood of success on the merits, that there's irreparable harm, that there's this balancing of the equities, and there's this public policy. When they go through those 4 steps, they want to see, hey, does this person, does this group, does this agency meet the 4 standard prong test for an injunction? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to grant an injunction because I don't want the harm to continue that money can't fix, right? That's what they're saying. The court, in this case, the Supreme Court, I should say, only addressed the injunction part. Basically saying, lower court, you shouldn't have issued an injunction, but we're not even going to address, should the court allow it? Are they constitutionally available to do this? Does the president executive have the power? They're not going to address that. What we're going to address is, should an injunction have been implemented? And the court said, no, it shouldn't have. Go back and continue with your firings, and then allow the lower court that allowed us to play out.
One of the things, too, we saw early on with the administration was the DOGE cuts that we saw, and those came fast and swift. And then there was a lot of legal challenges out of that. And many of the people that lost their jobs were back in their jobs because they were hired back because the government realized, oh, we shouldn't have let these people go because they are much needed.
Yes.
What's different with this?
Well, with those DOGE cuts, I think it's funny, as you mentioned, I'm going to cut off my right leg, and then when I go to stand up, recognize I need a leg to stand up in. And that's
an analogy about it.
That's what happened, right? I mean, you fire folks from the Food and Drug Administration, 50% of your workforce, then you recognize, I kind of need folks to do the job that they were doing. All right, bring those people back. All right, we're going to fire these people from these other agencies, and then we'll recognize, okay, we need those people to come back as well. They were there for a reason. They were doing a necessary job. Regarding these are a different type of approach. These were well thought out, not probationary people, not where we're making fabricated, performance issues, which has been alleged that have happened in most of these other folks that have been released, specifically with the IRS when they reverse course and bring these people back. But in these situations with these reduction in force, this is planned. This is like what you talked about with the State Department. I know I want to get rid of 3,000 people. 1,000 people or 1,300 people have already been, terminated. Some folks are going to be released. Some folks are going to resign on their own. But we have a plan to get rid of 3,000. This is a more thought out approach. Even if it's moving faster than historically we moved, the approach has been thought out. The plan has been thought out. And so what has the White House said in response? Because they know that folks are going to bring litigation. They know that these cases are going to be continue to come against the government. Oh, so we got to make sure that our reduction in force plans are tight. Got to make sure that these plans can stand the mustard, that there will be no irreparable harm, so that there can be no injunction put in place. Those are the things that are going to have to happen. And the Trump administration is pivoting in real time and saying, I want to fire these people, but I got to make sure I'm giving them notice, an opportunity to be heard, an opportunity to appeal the decision. And so on the employment side, for the defense attorneys, or I should say the plaintiff's attorneys, they're doing the same thing. They're telling folks, once you're fired, go through the appeal process to ensure that you protect yourself. And then once you're given your job back, ask for your back pay. So all that means is more lawsuits.
More lawsuits definitely going to be coming in the White House. That's the report today that is coming out, that they are going to be gearing up for a lot of those lawsuits. We just mentioned about Doge shortly, just a few minutes ago. That was run by Elon Musk before he left office, and Tesla. And he's going back to run his company. That is going to be our third topic, as we're going to be talking about Tesla, as they are going to trial here over their Autopilot system. Well, much more on with Chief Legal Analyst Kelly Frodes from Queen City News Plus, and I'm Brian Blakely. We'll be right back in just a bit. Welcome back to Queen City News Plus. Brian Blakely here, Chief Legal Analyst Kelly Frodes, and we're talking about we've talked about education stuff today. We've talked about the White House gearing up for a lot of lawsuits that are pending, and we're going to be talking about Tesla here, as I was teasing here just before we went to a short break. But first off, Cleve, I wanted you to tell me a little bit more about the rulings here from the Supreme Court today, and what stood out to you.
Most of these rulings, when we're addressing injunctions, Brian, the majority is going to give an unsigned order, and they're not going to give much ruling of why they did it. They're just going to say, hey, the injunction shouldn't have been granted, and we're going to send it back to the lower court. Great, not giving us any guidance, so we don't know what the heck's going on. However, there's oftentimes a dissent, and the dissent will, tear into the majority and let them know that they totally disagree with what happened. So Justice Sotomayor described it as this. She said she described the court's decision as indefensible and a grave threat to our Constitution's separation of power, warning that this ruling would unleash what? Untold harm. These are the types of things, as a student of the legal profession, I like looking back in history and looking at famous dissents. Why? Because it's the dissents when you look 20, 30, 40 years later and you go back and say, wow, they were on to something there. And the majority may have gotten it wrong, or maybe they have evolved their thought process. But this is the one that I'd say to watch, where she says that it will unleash untold harm. What's that harm look like? Well, we're talking about kids. We're talking about education. We're talking about funding. Those are the things where that harm is going to touch each and every one of us, because if you got children, they got to go through this educational system that the rules are being rewritten as we're living in. That's going to be something that I'd stay and continue to watch.
Yeah, and the ways you fight are in court and also at the ballot box. It's because elections do have consequences, and that's the election not happening for until 2028, of course. Let's talk a little bit more about Tesla right now, Khalif. They are in court over their Autopilot system, and they're going to a trial in Miami because a student was killed in one of these Autopilot malfunctions from Tesla. Talk a little bit more about the legal implications of this.
You got this car crash that happened, and the individual that was driving, he dropped his cell phone. Engage Tesla's auto drive feature for it to drive the vehicle while he was searching for his phone. Once he engaged that autopilot, the car crashed going over 50 miles an hour right into the plaintiff's vehicle, killing him on impact. That's how we got here, and that's really the crux of the case. And so the argument is, you got a couple folds. You got on the one hand, product liability, that negligence, that gross negligence, that's going to be part of the argument. But then you'd also have just the regular negligence, the recklessness portion. And so I talk about it all the time here when we talk about how do you prove a negligence case. It's the A, B, C, D's of a tort claim: a duty, a breach, causation, and damages. With a negligence case, that's pretty straightforward. But with the product liability case, you're saying that this product was defective. This product, there's a standard here, and this product failed to meet that standard. In a nutshell, that's basically what you're saying, that Tesla is saying that we've put this product out here that meets these standards. And because it meets these standards, it's reliable, it's trustworthy, and you should have confidence in this product's ability to do what we said it would do. What plaintiffs are saying is, no, it isn't. What you guys are saying that is safe, that's trustworthy, it isn't. It's not properly vetted. It's not put in a position that's going to allow the user to be safe. And because it's not put in a position to allow the user to be safe, this Autopilot was marketed as something safer than driving on your own. But they're saying that if it was, this accident wouldn't have.
Yeah, and that's the thing there. This Autopilot is the thing. Their reputation is at stake right here because what we've seen over the technology evolve over the last 10 years is you can see much more of these self-driving cars and vehicles that are on the road, and that's what the wave of the future is supposed to be. And Tesla is the one who's been at the forefront of a lot of this type of technology.
And Tesla is, to their defense, they're attempting to push back at this and say, look, a number of things that we've done are to put in place would support the fact that our vehicles are safer on the road than the average user, right? Let's look at a couple things. Tesla says that the number of accidents per million miles, the U.S. average is 3.9%. Right, for the number of accidents per million miles. Well, with those Waymo those driverless vehicles, not sure if you've ever been in one of those, but they're pretty cool.
Was it Phoenix and Scottsdale?
Right.
Yep.
They're big out there, right? Mm-hmm. So that's 1.16% for every per million miles driven. But for Tesla, they're saying it's less than 1%, 0.15% per million vehicles driven is what they're saying. And so Tesla is alleging that our vehicles are safer on a percentage basis than just the average user, which is, 3.9% of the average person. Not only that, Tesla, Elon Musk came out and said human driving is not perfect, right? He said this at his shareholders meeting in June, noting that roughly 400,000 people are killed every year on U.S. roadways. What matters is, are we trying to make that number smaller? As long as we're making that number smaller, we're doing the right thing. The only argument that I have is on plaintiff's side. Of the 400,000 was my one person that I'm representing, part of that 40,000 people that you're saying were killed. And in making it smaller, could you have avoided this happening? That's what plaintiff will allege, because they're saying, I don't care about the 40,000. I care about the one.
The one
that
right.
was injured in your product because you misled us by saying it was safe.
And you assume when you get into a self-driving vehicle, as dicey as it can feel when you first get in one of these, you feel a lot safer as you're driving around for a little bit. But there is an assumed type of safety that you're going to be okay when you're driving around in one of these vehicles.
Well, that's part of the marketing, right? Well, I saw a video that Tesla let out in 2016 when they were first pushing out this because you got Autopilot, but then you got this full self-driving to the FDS system that's even higher. So you got Autopilot that may shift lanes, that do a couple things, but full self-driving has been marketed, has been advertised as you can, sit there with your hands and let this vehicle drive you all around. In the advertisement, it said the driver is only there for legal reasons. That he's not doing any driving at all. His car's driving itself all around. It's parking. It's pulling out. It's taking the person to his destination. And in the title leading in, it's saying, basically implying that our vehicles are so safe that this person's only there so we don't get sued. And for this advertising purposes, this car can do all the driving on its own. And that's what plaintiffs are alleging, that you have promoted this vehicle as the safest thing, that you don't even need a driver. Even though everywhere else they're giving you the warnings of have your hands there, be alert. But you're advertising it as, this is so safe, you can just, we really didn't need a driver. We only needed them to be there so we didn't get sued.
Well, we are certainly going to keep following this here at Queen City News Plus with the Tesla and also its trial, and also the education cuts, and also the State Department cuts when it comes to the White House and the mass firings as they're preparing for lawsuits, as well as the Department of Education cuts here to North Carolina. Those have been our three topics today. Chief Legal Analyst Khalif Rhodes, and thanks for watching Queen City News Plus.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.